So don't you think this is going to be a really great idea to be able to hear from each other and ask questions and share feedback and collaborate? And I'm going to bring an and into the picture. I've been working within women organizations since probably the late 1990s. I worked with lots of individuals, but pretty soon you start working in groups, right? And so I've been working with a lot of women, leaders of women organizations and women's projects. And what would be happening, what would happen is they'd have an idea about how to make something better. And they'd get together and they'd start making plans and collaborating. There'd be an excitement there, and they would just get rolling. And as soon as it got to be at a certain level of exposure and competency, there'd be a lot of infighting, pull back, and everything would collapse. And it used to be known as gossip. It used to be known as catfighting, you know, and that's not it's not, in my experience and what I'm sensing, that we're not at all at that same level as women in their female psyche were in the late 1990s. But I thought it would be an important thing for us to hear some of the stories that I've run into, that I didn't make up and I didn't read, but that I've run into in working with clients, so that we can then make different choices and even doing some healing around it, so that we'll be doing it for our group, but we'll be doing it for all groups, for all women. So that's what we're going to go into now. So first of all, I'm going to tell you a story. Putting it into the galactic framework, this story probably took place maybe 300,000 years ago, when it was first discovered, or shortly after it was discovered, that there was a bodysuit on the planet that was not owned by the parasitic dominators. In fact, they didn't even know that body was there because it had no ownership marks. So it made no signals that showed up on the monitoring system of the outsiders. So I think we've gone over a little bit of that, like the Garden of Eden story myth carries a lot of that initial truth of what happened when the outsiders discovered that there was a presence on the planet in a bodysuit that they didn't own. And when they discovered that they didn't own that bodysuit, and not only that, that bodysuit, the soul in that bodysuit, was being activated to be able to identify good and quote unquote evil. So that soul in that bodysuit was going to be able to know their presence was there. So that whole Garden of Eden story is really all about knowledge of good and evil, knowledge of good and evil. It wasn't knowledge per se, knowledge of good and evil, given to Eve, the female, by the serpent Sophia, to say, okay, now that you've got the garden going, you got the lush garden going, now let's go and take you to activate the next phase of your mission. Design, birth, thriving community, first phase. And that's kind of where we're at in this circle. How do we design and birth a thriving community? So got that done. Now the next thing, serpent, quote unquote, the wise teacher, comes in and says, okay, now I'm going to activate this gift of discernment. And in that excitement of a discernment, that energy of excitement, in one of the villages, spilled over and said to one of the souls in male bodysuits, "Hey, let me show you what I'm learning." And lo and behold, that energy, those showed up on the monitoring system of the outsiders, and they showed up and said, "Wait a minute, you can't know good and evil. You can't know that. That's only for the gods to know." I had an experience when I was in the Mormon community when that very thing happened. Very thing happened. When one of the authorities came and said to those at the BYU who were learning personal revelation, "You can't know that. It's too powerful. It's only for us." Same words. Really weird now that I think about it. So this story talks about what happened in villages because women's not enough, women's attachment, being attached and kept small, survival mentality. So it goes back that far in the galactic history, although we're now on the planet. Okay, so here we go. And we're not, you can just kind of listen to the story. I'm not going to take you through a guided visualization here. We're just going to tell the story as I was shown it. I'm going to tell you how it came about. And I had a client who had an African-American father and a white Caucasian mother. And she was young girl, very, very powerful, very clear, doing her own thing as she grew and kept running into her own pain and limits, etc. And I started working with her. She started studying with me. And then she kind of was on her own, doing her own thing. And maybe about 2 years ago, she came back. She said, "Sharon, there's something I just cannot get past. And it's been with me for as long as I can remember." She said, "It's like a division inside of myself pulling me just two different directions, pull, pull, pull. And I can't get to it. So would you do a session with me on that issue?" So I said, "Absolutely." So I go into my quiet place and I quiet myself down and I get myself connected into her field and am there with her. And almost immediately, like, whoa, here was this pull and tug. And the pull and tug was white grandma, black grandma. Black grandma saying, "Let's get going. Come on, don't sit around. Let's get moving." Very loud. White grandma going like, "Calm down. You're too loud. My ears are hurting. Wait a minute. You're going to scare people." Struggle. As my client is trying to make a difference in the world, these two aspects of herself had different ways of doing it. Keep quiet, do it quietly, secretly. No, get out there and really scream it to the world. So I said, "Whoa, I see. This is what she's feeling she's feeling your presence. You both want what's good for her. You have different ideas about that." They said, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." So I said, "Well, let's do this, because I know you both want what is good and safe for this granddaughter." Yep, they agree. We do. I said, "Okay, then let's go back to see where there is the commonality. Where was there a commonality that we can work from? We can create maybe a different way of interacting. Is that okay with you guys, with you two?" "Oh yeah," they said. "Yeah, let's go see what we can do. This isn't working. So let's do." So that's when, working with beings and teams that can take us back through the timeline, what I call the timeline channel, moving back in time until we can find a time where this divisiveness didn't exist, but maybe where it became into existence. So we went back in time, back in time, back in time, until we came to a village, and the women in that village were in circle in their sacred place. And they were faced with this problem that they were hearing existed in other villages, in that there was an invader type presence, not, it was foreign to them. And all that they knew to ask for respect, to be, hey, you wait there on that side of the river. Let us check you out before you come into our village. No, no, this group of were invaders. They could care less what the women of the village said. So it was a whole different ball game. So different villages were trying to get through it in different ways. This particular group, one of the original power bigger groups, said, we've got to do something to A, preserve our lives and the lives of our family, and B, preserve our gifts. Because it seems like in those other villages, if the women stand up with their gift of this or gift of that or wisdom here, or that's when they really get slammed. So we know that's not the answer. So for them, not only preserving life of the village, but preserving the preciousness of their gifts. So that what they had done, and it was like symbolically, they had brought their gifts, and it was put, and the gifts were put in the middle on this large, beautiful blanket. And there was the gift of vision, there was the gift of healing, there was the gift of alchemy, there was the gift of unity, there, you know, all different kinds of gifts that were intrinsic to those in a female body. The gift of design, the gift of manifesting effortlessly. All of those gifts then were put in the middle of the circle. And it was decided that each of the gifts would be taken by one of the women and her family. And they would take the gift and we would shift it, shape shift it into an innocuous, common, non-threatening activity. So the gift of alchemy became cooking. And the gift of magic became chanting, singing, you see. So they each took a gift. It became their family's gift. It was the family's inherited and obligation and responsibility to keep this gift held and passed on to from mother to daughter to granddaughter to granddaughter in innocuously, so that the outsiders wouldn't even think about it being a gift because it looks different. And that's what they did. And so each of the families took a gift, and this Black grandmother's family took this gift of loud dancing and singing, loud, 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 you know, as part of the way they put their gift into the magic. So I'm watching this happen, and then I see two women come up, and they said, we are not going to take any of the gifts. We are going to totally, totally neutralize ourselves. And we're going to do that so that we can go into the enemy camps and learn what we need to learn that we somehow don't know or don't remember. How can we stop this? And so we are going to make ourselves so neutralized that they won't even know we're not them. You see, we will appear as if we are them. And they said, okay. And the agreement was that those gifts would be polished and refined and kept precious. And those that the two that neutralized themselves said, you know, the hope we have is that we will be able at some time in the future to bring us back into circle with what we have learned to overcome these invaders, to prevent them, so that then all of the gifts that have been kept so precious could then be shared. And I will teach you to drum, and you teach me to sing, and you teach me to cook, and I'll teach you to chant, and we'll teach each other the gifts to restore all of the gifts to all of the families. And that was the agreement. So as we watched that, what I realized is that the families that so neutralized themselves had to be extremely silent. And here is this white grandmother who is silent. You can't rock the boat. Why? Because their promise was to be so silent, to be so much almost like in agreement, so that they could observe and get the secret. And so I said to these two grandmothers, you see what we're doing here? Your granddaughter has been taught the authority voice of women. White grandmother, you need to learn from your granddaughter and take on that voice of authority. That's the safety. And then the circle can come back together again. So I said, we're going to go into the circle from the future. So they said, okay, if you seem to know what you're doing. I said, come on, let's go. So we approached the circle and we said, we have come from the future because so-and-so's granddaughter has found what is needed for the safety of your village. And so we've come to give you that secret. Can we enter the circle? So we waited until they considered and they said, yes, we'd like to know. So then we explained to them that what we had learned by knowing about these outsider types was their agenda, their nature, what had been kept away from them in their lifetime that now has been restored in this granddaughter's lifetime is the Sophia power, the voice of not just discerning, feeling that something's off, to be able to say, stop, put your sword to heaven and say, something's off, PTO, move out the energy of outsiders. That's what had been stolen from you, and now we're returning it to you. And they're going like, okay, they're like, we don't know. Well, let's try it. So I said, we have the golden dragons with Mother Gaia. We have this circle of spiritual women who have been working to restore past. So they're here with us. And so we said we're gonna have them encircle you, and we want each of you in this circle that's giving up and separating your gifts. We want you in this moment, instead of separating your gifts, let them be there, and then open up your sensitivities and tell me, and go, just put out your tentacles and tell me when any of you sense the energy that is not of the family, not of this village, that there's something off. And we just stayed with them and let them search and search until they went, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it. They said, that's what the other villages are talking about. They said, that's it. That's it. I said, okay. So here's what you do. So I had I said, we're just going to freeze frame that energy. It's not going to go anywhere, but you now know it's there. We are holding connection to it. But we brought in the energy of Sophia as that ceremonial person who could one by one touch and bless the women in that ancient circle to activate their Sophia center, like going through that ceremony of activating that Sophia center, putting on the cloak of Sophia. And when they all had it, we said, okay, now this is what you do. Feel the off energy. He said, we got it. I said, okay. And just in your mind's eye, just put your sword to heaven, connect to the PTO, and say, this energy is not acceptable, not of the light. Remove it back to its home of origin. And then we said, we will hold space with you, doing that work with you. So that's what we did until the women in that ancient circle said, it's gone. It's gone. We felt their joy, we felt their celebration, and their gifts then were all part of the community gift. My client's white grandma didn't have to be silent anymore. Her assignment that her ancestors had taken on was complete. Now she could all stand in the power. The Black grandmother, who took a gift and just held on to that one gift to preserve it, could now relax into the authority voice and use the gift as it had been intended to be used, so that they could work together under the bigger power of Sophia. So we stayed until the village women redistributed, energized the gift for each other. And then we brought that whole change forward to anchor the same kind of change for my client through reality shift and through her own personal energizing work, so that her energy then became a united energy. She had the power of both ancestors in wholeness, not in the crippledness that had been there. In the past, and in the very recent past, I think what they call cultural appropriation is part of that story. This is mine. You can't have it, because each family was told to hold it, to keep it separate, to keep it sacred, and they couldn't share it, couldn't allow it to be shared until the authority voice was brought back, and that was a piece that was missing. So here we are in our place and time, where our gifts are coming up, and we are going to be weaving them together without the edge of, this is mine, not yours. We're going to be able to share it and see how they enhance each other. But while that particular energy was still going on, a lot of struggle between women from that very, very ancient circle. So if you have any comments, does that bring up anything for you?
I'm curious about the process, and it's probably not the time and space to get into that, but I'm so curious how you work with that woman on your table or whatever, as you're going back into this with the two sides, the lineages, and bringing them all together. And are you just holding the space? Are you verbalizing what you're seeing? Are you encouraging her to feel it, like you're guiding her on a journey? Yeah, and I love the idea of reclaiming the authority voice and weaving together the gifts that each of us have brought from the past now, because the time is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the process is definitely part of the TAG curriculum, but and even with some of my clients. So it's a basic product protocol and also unique, but definitely we'll be working with like maybe more of that, definitely in the tag curriculum. And it's based on, again, it's based on the law that says you ask, you receive. One person asks one, and then it can be done for the whole. So, it's based on having your own, how does that apply for me? But I think what will be important is for this is to do, I'll have a reality shift that says basically, and I didn't create that because I wait till it kind of pops and comes, and you might have one too, that I am powerfully creating with women of multiple gifts in ways that are expansive and totally safe. Because it is time, the sixth sun, the time of the sixth sun, part of the time of the sixth sun talks about gifts coming back together from all the different tribes. Well, that's what's happening with us in our work, all the gifts of the different tribes. It talks about building a life on female values. That's what we're doing. We are living in the time, and we didn't design it that way. We've been following guidance, and that's what we're doing. We are doing that. So there's one more thing. Emma, were you coming close for a question? Okay, Emma's
Yes.
question.
And again, you don't have to answer my questions. But there's a kind of a broad sense of the different gifts being hidden by different tribes that we associate today with perhaps the different races or the different ethnic definitions and things like that. But how related are our souls in these current bodies to the, say, genetic history of that body? Does that make sense? So I'm this soul. I have a genetic history of, my mom's family being Jewish and my dad's mother's family being Roman Catholic and his father's family being some sort of hillbilly Methodist, and so how much do my sharing of gifts have to do with my physical body's genetic heritage? I think that's my question.
I think that probably it's like all of, we think things are really simple, that there's just love and light, and then there's shadow, and it's not that way. So here is some gifts that came through your Jewish heritage. Here's some gifts that came through, the different heritages, and the more complex your heritages are, also the more complex opportunities you have to draw from. And this would be a question you would ask. Here I am, a soul in the bodysuit that has all of these particles from all of these generational gifts, and yet you don't need all of them. But is there one that really is most important for you for this lifetime? Then that's the one that you draw. Then that's the one you draw forth. It's like we all have unlimited psychic gifts. We'll call psychic gifts spiritual gifts that we've used in different lifetimes, different gifts. And we don't, in this physical body, it's a finite life, so we only have so much bandwidth. And so we, even those who are aware very young of a psychic gift, it might be 1 or 2, but not 12. But they have access to 12. But what is in this lifetime? Which do you want to draw in? And by drawing that one in, working with that, because in the tag work, then you still heal the different genetic lines anyway, but you don't have to heal each of them separately.
Okay, so to complicate it a teensy bit more,
Yeah.
so let's say a body has a walk-in soul instead of a birthed soul.
Mhm.
Is that pretty much going to be your same answer?
No,
Okay.
my understanding, and I'm just checking too to see if that's still, because I've had a lot of walk-ins to get all the information. I had to have a lot of different walk-ins at different times because the soul, didn't have access to all of them. So the way have been told a walk-in, how that works is, here's a soul in the body. It used to be way back, like in the 90s, when I was first made aware of it, it was usually the soul in the body was just exhausted with life. It was usually like, I've had it. It was that and they want out. And there's a soul that says, I could use your body, your age, your circumstances. I could use it as a continuation for what I need for development. So it's also a soul agreement says, can I take over the body? And and it's an agreement. That's a walk-in, not a takeover. So a walk-in, right? So the soul coming into the body has also an agreement to complete some of the patterns, some of the unfinished businesses of the original, and then to begin whatever the walk-in wants to complete. So it's almost like a heart transplant in that regard. There's the residue of the original, of the donor, that has to be dealt with, and the more that gets dealt with and healed, then the more clarity of the soul that's now there will take and build from whatever they draw from the energetics, including the genetic line, and they might pull in something totally different, but their life has to also do some completion.
It sort of seems to me that if it's a walk-in soul, then they're going to be perhaps more directly connected to their star family's stuff than the body family's stuff.
Not necessarily. Sometimes that's true. It really depends on the
Okay.
walk-in.
Okay.
Because they might bring in just as much garbage to complete, so they still have the contamination stuff to go through. So it is pretty individual.
Okay. Thank you. That clarifies.
So
Sharon
a
and
walking
Deborah,
soul is not a bad thing.
a walk-in, no.
It's a good, like we might even welcome it to
Yeah.
continue transforming.
Yeah, there are. I've run into situations where the two souls planned the life together. You know, that it's a joint life. It's a joint mission, and I'm going to be here for this length of time, and I'm walking with you, and then I'm going to take over, and you're going to walk with me, and that's a little bit different, but it's still a walk-in, but it's an agreement right from the beginning.
And is your work helping to facilitate this, Sharon? Sometimes, maybe?
No, not to facilitate it. What I ran into is a lot of clients who came to me that couldn't figure out what in the heck had gone on, what was wrong with them, and it was because they didn't know about walkovers, walk-ins, and so understanding about that, and making sure the soul got into the body correctly was another problem. You know, it's like getting into a car and you've got your leg in the wrong place and you don't know it because you haven't been in the car before. So getting the body seated was more like making those kind of adjustments. There was support groups for walk-ins in California for a long time. I haven't run into them very rarely, but I also know it's almost like the possibility of a massive walk-in group is certainly a possibility in order to shift the leadership in the world. That hasn't happened. There have been some lower level leaders that have had walk-ins, but that could happen even at a higher level leadership. So where all of a sudden this leader that was acting really dominating, and all of a sudden they become, you know, acting differently. That's definitely a possibility. Deborah.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah.
So what happened to the client after you healed the grandmother?
Doing well. She's doing well. She I don't see her very often because she now lives, out of the country. But she's just getting her life's just started, because she has lots of skills, a lot of abilities, and so it's all come together and it's moving forward really well.
Thank you.
Mhm. So I was going to do a guided healing meditation, but we're going to save that for next week, because I think as we talk in our present day about who we are and what we are, what I want to be proactive about, this is what's been in the female psyche, what's still left. So we don't run into it and go like, whoa, what happened? Let's, as much as possible, be proactive. And also I invite that, with some of you, with skills and gifts you have, and even during your presentation, or if you feel to like doing after a presentation, before we close, if you, hey, I would like to do this process with this group because of what I think might be coming up, feel free to do that, because we are, we're wanting to move forward. Junk's in the way, personal, but female psyche. And so feel free to do that. Okay. Okay, we're coming to the close, which means we're moving into butterfly hugs. Tara, thank you so much for being that first one out.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention really quick.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of biofield tuning before? Have you heard of that, Sharon?
I haven't, but Deborah has, and so has Emma. They're shaking their heads. Yes.
Oh, okay. I had that done a couple weeks ago when I was in Sedona. So that was really interesting experience. Have you done that before, Emma, or anyone? No.
They haven't done it. They've heard of it. I don't think you can see them. Are you on your phone, Tara?
Yeah, I have to keep switching between the
Yeah,
pages.
that's why I was saying so and so are shaking their heads. Yeah. I mean, there is so many possibilities, and the power of integrated protocol, which is what you're talking about. The power of an integrated protocol is it collapses the time. It makes things happen more quickly. It empowers your clients in a different way. And so you start, like what you're doing is you're starting where some of your clients are. And that's exactly what all of us are doing with our work. We're putting it out there, and we're seeing who's at this particular interest level. But that we're not staying there, just like Sharon said, keep the bigger vision too, because there's a bigger vision with
right.
all of it. Okay. And let me see, I was just going to say, if I could find that paper, there it is. I think this is it. So next week, who we have signed up so far is Gail, yo, and Cinda, yo ho. So if anybody wants to look over the paper in the email I send out, and let me know if what you'd like to be. And again, even if you want to just have us do an interview, I mean, we know how to do that. We can do that. Okay. There's Deborah.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Something else. On the heat that's in the Pacific Northwest, the heat wave, the heat dome, as they call it, what did you guys get on that? Because that's like so bizarre to me.
I
With
did
the ocean there and having that much heat that the ocean wasn't ameliorating it,
Yeah. I didn't ask about it. I know I talked to, I think it was Kelly, who's in Portland, and Portland was hotter than Seattle. And she was working with it as a fire energy and finding it very powerful. And I didn't work with it. I don't know why I didn't. So I don't know.
Okay.
But it's a good question. I think that the questions, yes,
I keep getting there's something major shifting in the earth, and I don't know if it's magnetic fields or something, because that's just
Well, let's
very weird.
yeah, let's just kind of each of us ponder it, and we'll make it. I'll make a note for next week that we'll see what that pondering question might have brought, because that's what we're about here as we're designing. We're seeing what is and what ought to be, and how do we get there, or what's the message, and let's get the message. So I think that was a good question. Thank you for bringing that up, Deborah. And there was another hand, I thought. Oh, Tara.
Me, sorry.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm interested in that too, because I'm wondering if there's something that we can do to just try to bring rain to this side of the country. I don't know if that's even possible, but it's being in dire need. And it's, you know, I don't know if there's anything that can be done or how that even would be possible, but I just
Oh
thought
yeah.
I'd mention
I
it.
mean, I mean, definitely. I know people are doing that, and the rain is happening. I think Emma, you said something on Facebook that you were on the East Coast was, I don't know, it was intentional to go across the country, but you were saying you were being with the cool. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I just I knew that it was happening real bad in the Northwest, and not just in the U.S. but in Canada, where some pretty horrific things have come out of it. And then we got sort of a milder version of it, and so we had the Northwest, and then we had the Northeast, and these were two pretty intense heat things. And so I just kept, I mean, I just like to look at pictures, right? So I found a picture I had taken of like a very beautiful, cool, rainy, misty afternoon that I took from my back deck, and I just posted it and sent blessings. You know, I've done some weather magic in the past, and I find it, for me, it's important to really be respectful of the elementals and to kind of state a request for what I think would be good, but I don't see the bigger pattern, and to just offer it in a way that says what, you know, here's what is lacking, not just for us people, but, you know, for the trees and the wildlife, and for the, you know, for the land, for all of it. And so what is it that you need from us in order for it to be more beneficial, and for everyone, is, I guess, my answer.
And I think the response to her posting was, somebody said, I think it was even in Arizona or New Mexico, or somebody said,
It
"Thank
was
you, we
Sharon.
got it. We got."
Alexander said, and
Yeah,
then
right, it was.
Penny from New Mexico
Mhm.
both said that. So yeah, to do it with intention and respect.
Mhm.
It is pouring rain here right now.
Hmm.
Probably last 20 minutes or so, but it's been so great. We haven't had rain for a couple days. I'm like, where's the rain? So here it is today. I'll send it your way with respect to all of the elements.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Wow, so good being with you, right? Another great time together. So sending love, taking the energy that we have been with and helped generate and that has been holding us. And as we open our circle to close it, we ask that those energies be broadcast through the Tesla towers around the world, that our vibrations are in alignment to our divine family's agendas. We are brought into that wellness, vibrancy, stability with love, grace, and discernment. And so it is. Okay. Next week, we'll see you then, okay?
Thank
Bye, love.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.